In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to set up proper crops and bleeds in Photoshop CC 2017 for the HP Indigo 7900 press. First of all, let me point out that here at TPSi, we prefer if you can create or import your design into Illustrator or InDesign and save it as a PDF to go that route, since those programs are already set up for printer's marks. In Photoshop, you'll have to create both crops and bleeds, since there isn't anything in the software that will automatically do that for you. Now, if for some reason you're unable to do it and we have to create those for you, we'll ask you for a setup charge and access to your original Photoshop file, complete with fonts, graphics, and images. You can get in touch with us through the information at the end of this video to discuss costs. Now, it's important that before you create any graphics or images for print, you figure out the size of your print canvas first. This will save you the headache later of having to risk image quality and resolution because you had to enlarge your design or rearrange graphics to accommodate the bleed area. Understand that a bleed is an area of color beyond the edge of your design, so that when the printed piece goes to post-production for trimming, you don't have a sliver of white paper showing around the edges. I'll also suggest that if you have some common print sizes you typically use, it might be a good idea to create some blank Photoshop files that just contain the crops and bleeds to use as a template for future projects. Okay, so let me show you how to get started. First, go to File and select New. You'll see the new document panel appear with some new features. At the top of the panel, you'll see that you have some options for photo, print, art and illustration, web, and so on. Now, for our purposes, you're going to want to select the print option, which will automatically give you the best presets for print, such as common print sizes and the resolution being set to 300 ppi. The only thing that needs to be changed is the color mode. Go ahead and change that to CMYK. Now, if you're just using a straight image without graphics, you can go ahead and leave it as RGB. For our example, we're going to print something that's a 5x7. Now, normally you would just want to add those dimensions in here. But for something going to print, you're going to want to adjust those measurements to accommodate a bleed area and some crop marks. Here's how you figure out what you need for your canvas size, because it's not the size of the finished piece like it would be in web design or for a photo that's going to be placed into InDesign at a fixed size. Okay, so this rectangle represents our finished size of a 5x7. If you're making a template, go ahead and create a layer with the rectangle to show your finished size. Also, go ahead and drag out some guidelines right to the edges of your finished size. We'll be using these later to set up crop marks. Next, you're going to want to add a bleed area that extends 1/8 of an inch or 0.125 beyond your finished edge. Now, as far as your crop marks, which I'll show you how to create those here in a minute, at least know they need to extend into an area another 1/8 of an inch beyond the bleed area, and they're also going to overlap into the bleed area. So what all of this means, that instead of just having a 5x7 canvas size, it's actually going to be a 5.5 times 7.5 canvas size. Actually, in any design that you create, like let's say you have an 8x10 finished size project that you're completing, you'd still need to go ahead and add 1/2 of an inch. So that would be an 8.5 times a 10.5 canvas size. Just add 1/2 of an inch to your total dimensions to get your completed size to accommodate both crops and bleeds. Now, when you create your design or open up your image, you'll want to make sure that if you want to have the image or design to extend off the trimmed edge, to make sure it at least goes to this bleed line. It's okay if it goes beyond the bleed line, but at least needs to extend to this line. Now, I've already got a photo here in this layer that I had originally cropped to a 5x7, but because we need a bleed area, I scaled it up slightly so the edges of my photo would extend to the bleed line. Okay, so now it's time to add in those crop marks. Go ahead and select the single column marquee tool, and making sure that the second icon is selected, which is the Add to Selection option, click on each vertical guideline. Then select the single row marquee tool, and still making sure that the Add to Selection option is still highlighted, click on the horizontal guidelines. You should see all of the marching ants on each line activated. Now select the rectangular marquee tool. Select this third icon, which is the Subtract from Selection option, and drag out a rectangle that cuts out the intersections of each of these corner boxes, making sure that you have an even selection in each corner. Release your mouse and you should see this middle section disappear. You'll still see the marching ants on the corner lines. Next, go to View and Clear Guides. Then go to Edit Stroke, and you'll see that it's giving you 3 pixels, which is fine. Hit OK. Finally, hit Command or Control D to deselect everything, and you should see perfectly formed even crop marks. Now that you're done with your crop marks, if you're using a template, remember to turn off these guide layers and save your file as a regular Photoshop file with all the layers intact in case we need your original file. Next, save a secondary Photoshop file with all of your layers merged but not flattened. Using the merged file, save it as a Photoshop PDF. When this panel comes up, if you want to rename your file, do so here, where you want to save it to, and hit Save. You'll see this Save Adobe PDF panel appear. Change the Adobe PDF preset to Press Quality. Change the Standard to PDF X4 2010, and check the View PDF after saving option. Hit Save, and when your PDF opens up, you should be able to clearly see your crop marks extending into and beyond the bleed area. You'll also know that you have your canvas size right if you look in the lower left-hand corner by hovering your cursor over it, and you'll see the correct canvas size pop up. In this case, it's a 5.5 times 7.5 size. Now, if all of this is right, then your file is ready to submit to us for print.